Woo! Man, I got to tell you, that was close. I thought we were going to get through a season without hearing anything stupid out of Sheryl Swoopes' mouth and anything that sounds rather interesting, something that you might choose to give some side-eye to.
The Indiana Fever just shook up the WNBA with a move no one saw coming. They released not one, but two well-known rookies from the team. The news spread fast and had fans everywhere talking. And just when people were still trying to make sense of it, Sheryl Swoopes, known for her outspoken views on Caitlin Clark, jumped back into the spotlight. But this time, she didn't just have Clark in her sights. She called out the entire Fever organization.
You have a black player that just got cut, and Sheryl Swoopes is not happy about that.
What seemed like a routine roster change suddenly turned into full-on WNBA drama, complete with headlines you couldn't make up. Just when it felt like Sheryl Swoopes had faded from the spotlight, she popped back up out of nowhere. So, what did she have to say this time? And how was the Indiana Fever handling all the buzz and backlash? Drop your thoughts about Swoopes in the comments. Let's get into it.
Call me nuts, but unfortunately for the old WNBA fandom and media, in her case, media and old players, unfortunately, in some cases, you do feel like there is something else lurking behind said opinions that may not be basketball related. Let's put it that way.
Let's kick things off with the roster cuts that turned heads. The Indiana Fever just made one of the boldest preseason moves we've seen in a while. Bree Hall, yes, that Bree Hall, the dynamic guard and two-time national champ from South Carolina, was cut before she even got a real shot. She didn't play a single minute in the opener against Washington, got limited time in the Brazil game, and just like that, she was out. And if that felt like a shock, hold on, because the Fever weren't done yet.
Hall is now gone, as you know. And today it was announced that Yvonne Ejim has been waived by the Fever as well. Sophie Cunningham talked about that yesterday, saying you can latch on to another team, another place.
Just because you didn't make a roster doesn't mean you're out of the W.
Just about 24 hours later, the Fever made another surprising move, cutting Yvonne Ejim, Gonzaga's top scorer and a player known for her hustle and heart. That's two rookies with standout college careers and serious potential. Let go before they even had a chance to settle in. Neither one got much time to show what they could do. Just like that, they were out. It's a tough reminder of how brutal pro sports can be. It's not always about talent. Sometimes it comes down to timing, team fit, or playing numbers. Dreams run headfirst into the business side of basketball.
As expected, have waived Yvonne Ejim. She's just not at the level that the Indiana Fever are hoping her to be at.
The Fever announced it directly. Thank you, Yvonne Ejim, who was the all-time leading scorer in Gonzaga.
So, the obvious question is, why these two players? To understand that, you have to look at the Fever's salary cap situation. After buying out Katie Lou Samuelson's expensive contract to bring in key veterans, the team could only afford to keep 11 players on a roster. All the vets, like Natasha Howard, DeWanna Bonner, Sydney Colson, Brianna Turner, Sophie Cunningham, Darius Dantas, and the recently re-signed Kelsey Mitchell, have at least 1 year of guaranteed money. That means if the Fever cut them, the team still has to pay their full salaries. The only players who could be cut without financial penalty are those still on their rookie deals: Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hall. And let's be real, no one is letting go of any of those three. That locks in 10 of the 11 available spots right there.
Man, it's hard, right? We all reached out. I think that they brought really good people in, great people into training camp this year. But just because you didn't make this squad, this is probably one of the harder rosters to make in the W this year. It doesn't mean you're out of the W, and you just got to keep ready, keep playing, keep grinding it out. And if it's hard to make the league. I know Sid and I, we were second rounders. We stuck. Her experience is a little bit different than mine, but just because you didn't make a roster doesn't mean you're out of the W.
In truth, all three rookies, Bree Hall, Yvonne Ejim, and Michaela Timpson, were battling for just one open spot. And right now, it looks like Timpson has the edge. The Fever need young forwards, and she's been making a strong case with her energy, hustle, and standout defense during training camp and preseason. Fans are already calling her the steal of the draft. Picked 19th when many thought she'd go in the top 10.
Simpson is obviously at a certain level. She's a rim runner. She just obviously has a higher ceiling than Ejim at the moment. And this is maybe a hot take.
For fans of Hall and Ejim, this one stings. It wasn't just about stats. It was about the harsh reality of tight salary caps, limited roster spots, and the pressure to build a championship team. These cuts hit hard because they weren't just about losing players. They were about losing potential, promise, and hope. And just like that, 2 dreams were put on hold.
It's in rare form, hating on Caitlin Clark all last year. Well, maybe she has figured out, well, hating on Clark, I've been told that's not really a great idea, yada, yada, yada. So what other white girls can I tune up from the Indiana Fever?
Of course, the backlash came fast, and leading the charge, loud and clear, was none other than Sheryl Swoopes. The moment news broke about Bree Hall's release, Swoopes jumped in like she'd been waiting all off-season for this moment. And she didn't hold back. This wasn't a casual comment. It was a full-on verbal takedown.
Okay, example. The Washington Mystics Indiana Fever game. Because I know on social media, people were like, well, why aren't the starters in for the Mystics? They could win this game. And I was there, right? Because preseason is about, yes, you're going to play your starters. You're going to play your players. Typically, they don't even play that many minutes, right? Because you have so many players on your roster that you got to make roster cuts. So you're still trying to figure out who can fit what we're doing.
On the latest episode of the Women's Hoop Show, Swoopes didn't just share her thoughts. She went all in with a one-woman verbal blitz. Her main target? Fever head coach Stephanie White. According to Swoopes, White didn't just mismanage the rotations. She straight up undermined them. Her biggest question: why was Bree Hall stuck on the bench while players with less potential were getting more playing time?
I have a question, though, with Indiana, right? Because even though the starters weren't in, like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall they've been in the league for a while. You actually had players who, like Bree Hall, why wasn't she in that game per se? If you're still trying to figure out who's going to make the team, who you're going to cut. So I was a little confused with what Steph was doing.
Swoopes didn't hold back. If you're still deciding who makes the team, why wasn't Bree Hall even given a shot? She demanded. But it wasn't just the question, it was the message behind it. This wasn't only about game strategy. It was about opportunity. Who gets a real chance to prove themselves, and who gets pushed aside before they ever hit the floor? And just when it seemed like she might let up, Swoopes turned up the pressure. This time, she zeroed in on 2 players who did benefit from Coach White's choices: Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall. She didn't just name them. She questioned their roles with surgical precision. The way she put it, the message was clear, and it echoed across every WNBA corner of social media.
Okay. This is going to be a spicy season, because Kiki was like, what, Sophie? Girl, don't come over here. Sophie was like,
already,
I was
game
here
one.
Here for it. But the fact that's a rookie, right?
I know.
Kiki,
she did not back down.
But she just turned and laughed. She was like, what? What did you say? What are we doing?
And then came the comment that made her stance crystal clear. With a heavy dose of sarcasm, Swoopes said maybe she should start tuning up the other white girls on the Fever, now that she'd been told to back off Caitlin Clark. That wasn't subtle. It wasn't shade. It was a full-on spotlight and a narrative bomb dropped right in the center of the conversation.
My goodness, I mean, we've had 2 preseason games. 2! And we're back to it. We're back here. She's criticizing Stephanie White. I bet Sheryl Swoopes hates that last name. Criticizing Stephanie White. And, of course, it relates to Lexi Hall and Sophie Cunningham. Ooh, I bet Sheryl Swoopes hates her some Sophie Cunningham. You know she does.
Let's not forget, this isn't Swoopes' first round of criticism when it comes to Caitlin Clark. She was one of the earliest and loudest voices to question nearly everything about her. Clark's records, her style, her confidence, even her leadership. Pretty much everything but her shoe size. Now that Clark has the full support of the Indiana Fever and a massive fan base worldwide, Swoopes isn't just watching Clark. She's watching everyone around her. Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, anyone aligning with Clark in what looks like the Fever's push to build a new WNBA powerhouse is on Swoopes' radar.
Swoopes hadn't shied away from speaking her mind, as last season she raised questions about the legitimacy of Indiana Fever stars Caitlin Clark's collegiate scoring record. During the recent episode, Swoopes questioned Fever head coach Stephanie White's decision to give veterans like Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham minutes over Bree Hall and then cut her without giving her a fair opportunity to prove herself.
At this point, it's clear Swoopes isn't just skeptical of what the Fever are building. She flat out resents it. She sees this wave of young, confident talent changing the face of the league, and she's not here to cheer it on. She's here to question it, challenge it, and, if needed, light it up with criticism every step of the way. But while Swoopes stirs the pot, Caitlin Clark and the Fever are stirring something else. Real excitement. Yes, cutting two promising rookies hurt. No doubt. But the message is clear. This team is locked in on winning. Bree Hall and Ivani Jim still have bright futures, and fans appreciate the energy, effort, and professionalism they brought to AS for the Fever. They're all in, and the rest of the league is starting to take notice.
Preseason doesn't have to be just about your draft picks at all. It can be about, I need this team to learn how to build chemistry on the floor together, working as a team. By the way, learning my system because I'm a new coach and we're not playing under the Christy Sides rules anymore. You played basketball, Sheryl Swoopes? I don't understand.
And this is where Swoopes' hot take starts to unravel. Coach Stephanie White's roster decisions weren't reckless. They were strategic, focused on what really counts for a young, evolving team: chemistry, experience, and fit.
Keep in mind, a lot of this team is new to each other. So getting minutes upon with a new player like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull together, and some of these others, veterans, I'm sure is a priority. It's not about getting the minutes to prove whether or not they make the team. This team has to build actual chemistry if they want to win a title. That's what this is about.
No disrespect to raw talent, but in the WNBA, experience matters. Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull have put in real, hard-earned minutes at this level. They know the pace, the spacing, and the demands of a full pro season. They're not still figuring it out. They're helping hold things together. On a young, high-profile roster like Indiana's, you need players who stay composed under pressure, who can steady the storm, not get swept up in it.
Outside of your core four, Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Lexi Hull, basically the whole rest of the whole team's new. Dantas is on there. Oh, you get my point, but you got a bunch of new people.
And speaking of proving yourself, Sophie Cunningham did just that in the Fever's exhibition game against Brazil. She didn't just show up, she showed out. With gritty two-way play, vocal leadership, and a presence that said loud and clear, "I belong here," she earned her spot the hard way. This wasn't about favoritism. This was a veteran stepping up and making it count. But of course, none of that made it into Swoopes' rant. Instead, she spun it into something darker, a narrative that Clark and those around her are part of a system pushing out deserving young talent.
Oh my God, Sophie's a dog. She just is, she's a competitor. She's versatile, so she allows us to do different things. Like, she plays with such a toughness. She's huge, and she's going to be for us all season long. But what she brings from an energy standpoint, she raises the level of play of everybody around her as soon as she steps foot on the floor. Hell, even on the sideline. I mean, her communication, everything. She's definitely an X factor.
Let's take a step back and appreciate how wild this all is. Caitlin Clark, the record breaker, the logo range sniper, the upbeat point guard who turned the Indiana Fever into must-watch TV, is somehow being treated like a disruption instead of the generational talent she clearly is. She's brought in millions of new fans, shifted how the media talks about women's sports, and turned preseason games into headline events. She hasn't just elevated the Fever, she's lifted the entire WNBA. Ticket sales are soaring, TV ratings are breaking records, and merch is flying off shelves. Caitlin Clark is the unexpected stimulus package the league didn't even know it needed.
Is going to break so many records this year. Attendance, viewership, merch sales, all of the things.
This was a preseason WNBA game. It is unbelievable what it is Caitlin Clark does.
Whenever Caitlin Clark takes the floor, that maybe is different not only from any player in the WNBA, but from any player in basketball.
But as we all know, fame doesn't come without friction. And in Caitlin Clark's case, that friction has a name: Sheryl Swoopes. Last year, Swoopes was quick to downplay Clark's historic college scoring run, tossing out shade wrapped in doubt every chance she got. This year, she's back at it. Only now she's pulling Clark's teammates into the narrative, framing the Fever's roster decisions as coded favoritism. Fair or not, the implications are loud enough to drown out logic.
For this game for many reasons, but the main one being that Caitlin Clark would be returning to Iowa to play at Carver Hawkeye Arena. The Brazilian national team, even though they lost by that much, it still seemed like they had a great time. Caitlin was.
But here's the truth that keeps getting lost in all the noise. Caitlin Clark isn't cutting players, drawing up rotations, setting preseason lineups, or managing the salary cap. That's on head coach Stephanie White and the Fever front office. But because Clark is the face of the franchise, every decision the team makes, every cut, every contract, every minute on the floor gets linked to her. That's the pressure cooker she's in now, whether she asked for it or not.
Sheryl Swoopes is in mid-season hateration form. I'm sorry, this looks a different way to me. All right? You just, it's no other way around.
What's even more revealing is that Swoopes made it clear this isn't a one-time critique. Her tone says this will be a season-long grudge match, with every Caitlin Clark highlight followed by a yes, but from someone waiting in the wings. Meanwhile, inside the Indiana locker room, the pressure is real. This isn't just about building chemistry. It's about surviving a media storm and thriving under a microscope. Clark, Boston, Mitchell, Cunningham, Hull, Bonner, Howard, Carlson, Dantas, Turner, and whoever claims that final roster spot. This team is loaded with talent. But talent alone isn't enough. To become true title contenders, they'll need trust, resilience, and the kind of laser focus that blocks out all the outside noise.
Unfortunately, I think they're not only going to go after Caitlin Clark this year, they're going to go after Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull. There, I said it out loud.
And then there's the microscope locked on Caitlin Clark's every move. She's not just expected to play well, she's expected to be game-changing. Miss a shot? It's trending. Turn the ball over? Cue the hot takes. But hit a logo three, drop a no-look dime, or lead a clutch run, and it's not just inspiring, it's triggering. Because in today's WNBA, Clark isn't just a player, she's a symbol. She's not following the next era. She's leading it. And not everyone's ready. For the old guard, it feels like a challenge. For the new school, it's a full-on shift. So what do you think? Was Swoopes speaking truth to power? Or is this just another case of gatekeeping the spotlight? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're riding with Caitlin Clark and the Fever, make it known. Because if this is just the preseason drama, imagine the fireworks when the real season tips off. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss a second.